I used this for over 20 years to inflate my tires. CO2 canisters are simple, they're fast, but they have some pretty nasty flaws as well. They'll ruin your tubeless sealant, they leak air like a sieve, and then get your luggage confiscated at the airport. I'll tell you why I ditched my CO2s for this better option, the Cycplus Ultra Electric Pump. Mike here from Bikes by Mike with another cycling related video. Today I'm talking about tools, specifically the two most common tire inflation options for on the bike use. The low tech CO2 cartridge versus the higher tech option of an electric mini pump. Okay, let's get to it. To be honest, I never really wanted to do a video on electric tire inflators. It just never really excited me, and it feels like every YouTuber has covered this topic already, whether reviewing specific products or just babbling on as to why packable electric pumps are so awesome. But what is rarely talked about is why riders like you and me might want to consider using an electric pump over conventional old school CO2 canisters. Just like the debate between tubeless versus tube tires, there are pros and cons to both inflation tools that you really need to consider before deciding on which one is best for you. I felt this video needed to be made because I'm going to cover a few specific advantages and disadvantages with each option that you may not have thought about. I won't talk much about the manual hand pumps today. That's because while I love using a floor pump in my home shop, I find the portable ones, at least the ones that are small enough to carry in a jersey pocket, take far too much time and effort to fill a tire and just aren't all that practical for taking on rides. I have repaired a lot of flats with CO2 inflators. Up until recently, I carried them with me on my road bike, mountain bike, fat bike, and commuter. I've been relying on them for over 20 years, so I've had a lot of time to think about where they excel and where they fall short. Let's take a look at the pros first. Size-wise, they are relatively compact. A single regulator head and one CO2 cartridge are as small, if not smaller, than the footprint of a manual mini pump like the Silca Pocket Impero or the Cycplus AS2 Ultra Electric Mini Pump I'll be talking about later. Of course, this size advantage I'm giving to the CO2 inflator depends entirely on how many CO2 cartridges you feel you need to carry with you on a ride. I typically carry two canisters, one big and one small along with a regulator. This allows me to fix 2 to 3 flats on a single ride, which is a big enough safety net for me. And with this CO2 kit, it has a competitive footprint with both the manual pump and electric pump options. But if you're more risk adverse than I am, or want extra inflation capacity for a really long ride, or to bail out your friends that don't ride with tools, shame on all of you, you might need to add 1 or even 2 more CO2 cartridges to your saddlebag. And once you do that, your CO2 kit isn't actually that small anymore, at least not when compared to the manual or electric pump options. When we look at weight, it's a similar story. A single cartridge is feathery light, but once you factor in the weight of the regulator head and the multiple spare cartridges required for peace of mind, the total weight of the complete kit often equals or exceeds the weight of both a compact hand pump and a light-duty electric pump. When it comes to inflation speed, however, nothing comes close to a CO2. It is instantaneous. You can go from a completely flat tire to full riding pressure in a matter of seconds, which is incredibly satisfying when you're stuck on the side of the road and having to fix a flat. CO2s also perform really well when it comes to reliability. There are no moving parts to fail. Unless the O-ring in the regulator blows, a sealed steel CO2 cartridge is about as fail-safe a tool as you can get. You don't need to think about recharging a battery. It's a good pack it and forget it type of tool. For me, those are the reasons where CO2s excel. But again, the size and weight benefits quickly go away if you plan on carrying more than 2 CO2 cartridges. Now let's talk about the clear disadvantages with CO2s, which is exactly where electric inflators shine. These are the specific reasons I finally made the switch to the Cycplus AS2 Ultra Electric Pump. The benefits of electric tire pump really get amped up when it comes to travel. This was a tipping point that finally made me ditch my CO2s. First, with electric pump, you have the benefit of unlimited use. With CO2s, you have a finite number of shots. If you seat the tire incorrectly or mess up the valve connection, you have wasted a cartridge. With electric pump, if you make a mistake, you just turn on again. As long as you have battery life, you have air. And when you use your electric pump on a ride, you simply recharge it at night so that you are back to having full inflation capacity the next day. With CO2s, whenever you use up a cartridge, you need to replace it. And when traveling, this means packing a whole lot of extra CO2 cartridges for your trip. It's really not an efficient solution. Speaking of capacity, most electric mini pumps will provide as much or more total inflation volume on a single charge as you would typically get when packing 2 or 3 CO2 cartridges, but without the bulk and weight of individual metal canisters. The biggest travel factor, however, is airline and airport security rules. Almost all airlines and airports strictly restrict and sometimes outright prohibit carrying CO2 cartridges on carry-on and checked baggage. American Airlines, for example, does not allow CO2 canisters either in the cabin or as checked baggage. Then you have Air France that may permit you to carry a maximum of 4 CO2 cartridges, but prior approval from the airline must be sought in advance. You also have more lenient airlines like British Airways that permits CO2 canisters as of right, but even then you're limited to carrying a maximum of 4 canisters per passenger. And my own experience is that what is or is not permitted changes all the time. So just because you're allowed to carry CO2s one year doesn't mean they will be permitted next year, even for the same airline. I know some riders will sneak their CO2s into their checked baggage, but it's just not a good idea. You're opening yourself up to a whole lot of hassle, including having your CO2 canisters confiscated, delays and questioning by airport security staff, and even fines. Beyond travel, there are technical benefits to going electric. Except for the very smallest models, most electric pumps now come equipped with a digital pressure reading display. My Cycplus AS2 Ultra has a smaller footprint than my 2 CO2 cartridges and regulator combined, yet it offers the massive benefit of an accurate pressure readout. With CO2s, you're always left guessing as to how much air pressure you're putting in your tires. You usually end up with a tire that is rock hard or too soft. Here is something that is often overlooked, and for me, it is the number one biggest drawback with CO2 inflators. What a lot of riders don't know is that carbon dioxide as a gas is actually a terrible source of tire inflation for 2 reasons. First, the CO2 molecule is smaller and more soluble in rubber than the nitrogen and oxygen mix found in the air we breathe. This means tires inflated with CO2s lose pressure much faster, often losing air during your ride, requiring you to stop and reflate as you go. Second, the extreme cold of rapidly expanding CO2 gas can freeze tubeless sealant, causing it to coagulate into useless clumps inside the tire. It also can affect the pH level of the sealant, which is also bad as it dries it out and reduces its ability to plug punctures. That's why you'll often see manufacturers of tubeless tire sealant strongly discourage you from using CO2 to inflate a tire. Carbon dioxide just doesn't play well with latex-based sealants. In contrast, electric pumps use atmospheric air, eliminating problems caused by CO2, and it means you won't have to replace your sealant as often. The last negative with using CO2s is that the ejected gas is very cold, like minus 78 degrees Celsius cold. Not only does it make the canister difficult to handle and cause frostbite, but I've had plenty of CO2 nozzles freeze up solid to the point where I couldn't inflate my tire. Actually, it happened when I was making this video. So when we look at the pros and cons of CO2s and electric pumps just have a lot more going for them than traditional CO2 tire inflators. Which you choose ultimately depends on your priorities and what you value most. But for me, the inability to fly with CO2 canisters was the final straw that caused me to make the change for good. I need to mention one of the faults common to both CO2 inflators and electric pumps, at least when it comes to tubeless setups. Neither option will inflate a wheel fast enough to guarantee that a tire bead will reseat if it has fully popped off the rim. CO2 is faster than any electric pump for sure, but neither one moves enough air fast enough to guarantee that you'll be able to snap a stubborn tire bead into place. Sometimes only a shop compressor or a dedicated blast canister can do that. That is why if you run tubeless and get a flat, you should never let the tire fully deflate as you risk unseating the bead. As soon as you notice a puncture, your first thought should be to plug the hole with your finger to stop any more air loss. This will keep the bead seated on the rim. Once the air loss is stopped, you can take your time getting your inflation kit ready without worrying about the tire coming off the rim. After deciding to ditch my CO2 for an electric pump, my next decision was which brand and model to choose. In the last couple of years, there has been an explosion of mini pumps entering the market. For me, there are three things that are most important: durability, reliability, and the number of inflation cycles per charge. The best independent testing I've seen on electric pumps comes from zero friction cycling. Adam Karen is incredibly thorough in his testing. He doesn't just look at the spec sheets, he tests the pumps to failure, measuring their performance through their entire life cycle. He then uses a weighted scoring system based on a number of performance metrics, such as pump weight to inflation capacity, inflation time, total inflation cycles, performance degradation over time, and so on. And among the smaller lightweight micro pumps, the Cycplus AS2 Ultra came out on top as a clear favorite. And while the Ultra did get outperformed by a few other pumps in the overall category, those were much larger and heavier than the AS2 Ultra. The AS2 Ultra was able to inflate 3.4 28C tires to 70 psi on a single charge, which is almost unheard of for a pump this light and this small. Cycplus currently offers 4 bike-specific pumps: the AS2, AS2 Ultra, the AS2 Pro, and the AS2 Pro Max. The standard AS2 is the smallest of the 4, designed for pure minimalism. It's also the most affordable option at $122 Canadian. A pump this small and this light is never going to have huge inflation capacity. The 300 mAh battery will inflate 2 tires to 80 psi. This really is a pump for the ultimate weight weenie that prioritizes compactness over everything else and is willing to risk getting stranded with multiple flats. The AS2 Ultra and AS2 Pro are the middle ground options, introducing digital gauges and larger batteries, all within a footprint that is only slightly larger than the AS2, but weighing among the lightest pumps you'll find anywhere. You will pay more for the AS2 for those better specs. And don't get hung up with the claim that you're only getting 2 inflation cycles with these 2 models, as that's based on high tire pressures almost no one is using anymore. At a lower pressure of 80 psi, the Ultra will inflate 2 to 3 tires on a single charge, depending on the size of the tire used. And these are conservative numbers based on my testing, as well as zero friction cycling. As I mentioned earlier, the Ultra is my choice for on-the-bike inflation. It exceeds the number of tires I can inflate with my previous CO2 kit, while being both lighter and smaller than that kit. So for your weight weenies out there that want to keep your saddlebag light, but not risk getting stranded on the road with a flat, either the AS2 Ultra or AS2 Pro will be your best option. Lastly, we have the Pro Max, the powerhouse of the group, weighing significantly more than the other 3 and occupying more space as well. It is also the most expensive of the line at $176. The Pro Max gets you a massive 600 mAh battery, which will inflate 4 tires to 120 psi, or around 6 inflation cycles at 70 or 80 psi. A pump this powerful is likely overkill for on-the-bike use and will be best suited as a shop pump or for the home or for bike trips. But for my review, I chose to focus on the AS2, the AS2 Ultra, and the AS2 Pro Max to give you the widest range of options. I skipped the AS2 Pro simply because it's almost identical to the Ultra. I want to be fully transparent here and mention that Cycplus provided 2 of the 3 pumps to me free of charge for my review. They provide the AS2 and the AS2 Pro Max, but I purchased the AS2 Ultra myself with my own money. Actually, my decision to purchase it was made before they even contacted me. Cycplus did not have any input into this video, and they're seeing it at the same time as all of you. Let's look at the pumps one by one. We'll start with the base model, the Cycplus AS2. This thing is tiny. It isn't much bigger than an iPod's case, which makes it incredibly easy to stash in a jersey pocket or a small saddlebag. It is the lightest option, but is also the most basic, but it doesn't feel cheap or flimsy. It does not have a pressure gauge, so you're inflating by feel, similar to a CO2 cartridge. A tap of this button wakes up the unit and shows your battery level. Green is 80 to 100%, yellow is 50 to 80% charge, and red less than 50%. Pushing the button twice turns it on, and a single tap turns it off. It's really simple to operate. The included silicone cover protects the pump and dampens saddlebag noise, but it also traps heat. This restricts heat dissipation, meaning the unit could overheat during heavy use. For those of you without a waterproof storage bag, you want to use the included Ziploc bag as the pump is not waterproof. But why are you using a non-waterproof cycle bag? Check out this video I did for the best waterproof and lightest bicycle bags you'll find anywhere. And for those of you using TPU inner tubes, remember to use the extension air hose, as otherwise you run the risk of melting the resin TPU valve. In my testing, it works great for a purely emergency get-home device, but because of its small size, it takes a bit longer to fill the tire. But it works really well and is quieter than the Ultra and the Pro Max. It's perfect for the road cyclist who rarely flats and wants the absolute lightest setup. I was able to inflate two 30C tires from 10 to 68 psi on one charge. Next up is the AS2 Ultra, which is the one I bought for myself. In my opinion, this hits the ultimate sweet spot for my use. It is slightly larger than AS2, but the difference in size is barely noticeable. The biggest difference is the Ultra comes with a pressure gauge, which I find very handy. Long press this button to turn it on, and then you can set your desired PSI using the plus and minus buttons. Tap the power button to turn it on, and it will automatically stop when it hits the target air pressure. Like the AS2, it also comes with a waterproof Ziploc bag, air hose extension, charging cable, and other fittings. It inflates faster than the AS2, and interestingly, it runs a bit hotter too. I got the same number of inflation cycles as did zero friction cycling. 3.5 30C tires inflated from 10 to 68 psi on one charge. For the weight weenie rider who wants the assurance of being able to plug multiple punctures on a ride, this is a real winner. Finally, we have the AS2 Pro Max. This unit is substantially larger and heavier, resembling a small power bank. The LED display is essentially the same as with the Ultra, just a bit larger, and the buttons operate the same among the two models. And ditto with accessories. It comes with the same waterproof Ziploc bag, air hose extension, charging cable, and other fittings. However, with this heftier unit comes a big increase in performance. It inflates very quickly and runs cooler than the smaller units. And I was able to inflate 6.5 tires on a single charge. But this is also the loudest of the 3 units I tested. While this is the largest pump within the AS2 line, it still is small enough to stash in most saddlebags. Plus, it's not overly big given the number of inflation cycles it can produce. My older version of the Fumpa pump can handle the same inflation cycles of the AS2 Pro Max, but is noticeably larger and much heavier as well. The Fumpa pump also doesn't automatically shut off when you hit your target pressure, which is a handy feature with the Pro Max. So this is a great option for those riders that aren't super weight conscious or ride leaders who might need to fix multiple flats for multiple riders in a group ride. To wrap this up, If you're currently using CO2 inflators, you may want to look at converting over to one of the many electric pump options available today. The technology has finally matured to the point where reliability is no longer an issue, and they outmatch CO2s and even manual pumps in most areas. For me, the Cycplus AS2 Ultra strikes the perfect balance between size and function, but the tiny AS2 or more powerful Pro Max might be better suited to your specific riding needs. If you're interested in purchasing a Cycplus pump and you'd like to support this channel, please use my affiliate link, which you'll find in the video description below. This will allow me to earn a small commission on the sale, and it costs you absolutely nothing. It's a great way to keep Bikes by Mike rolling. And you can use the coupon code provided in the description to get 5% off your purchase. Tell me what you think. Do you agree that electric pumps are a better option over CO2s? Leave your comment below. That's all I got for today, folks. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe, as allow me to produce more content for all of you. See you next time. Happy rolling.